um, fiasco, which I think stands alongside the testing fiasco, to me feels like a point that's worthy of focus because it seems more fixable. The testing thing, we obviously screwed that up royally as a country. They are trying to scale it up. A lot of effort is going into that. It's still going to take a long time, and it will hamper our efforts until we've got it in place. Meanwhile, without testing, all we can do is large-scale mitigation efforts, like getting rid of crowds, telling people not to fly, other things like that. But also, people who believe they've been exposed should quarantine.
Rachel Maddow is currently being featured on state-controlled Chinese television as part of the communist propaganda machine. That's right. Now, keep in mind, this is the same Rachel Maddow that actually wants the networks to stop broadcasting President Trump's daily press briefings because she's accusing him of spreading misinformation. Gang, you can't make this stuff up. We're going to take a look at what's going on in China right now as we speak, how networks like MSNBC are actually being used as pro-Chinese propaganda, and why it's all part of the mainstream media's continued credibility implosion. You're going to absolutely love this. Greetings, everyone. Another happy day in quarantine to each and every one of you. Dr. Steve here. I hope you're all safe and sound and doing well. A huge warm welcome to all of our new viewers. If this is your first time at this channel, we post 2 videos a day analyzing current events, analyze some super awesome conservative trends so you can live in the present in light of even better things to come. It doesn't get better than that, does it? So if you haven't already done so, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. It'd be an absolute privilege to have you as a regular part of this channel, where together we get to celebrate each and every day with our proper social distancing, the inevitable collapse of left-wing globalism and the unstoppable rise of a new conservative age. Now, before we get into MSNBC's Rachel Maddow being used as Chinese propaganda, be sure to download your free gift, which we put together just for you. We are calling it our fake news antidote. That's right, we need fake news antidotes as well. It's a compilation of over 20 sites that I go to for my news each and every day. You can download it completely free at the link down below in the pinned comment section. I think you're going to really enjoy it. All the sites are hyperlinked. I think you'll find it a wonderful daily resource. And finally, I want you to head over to my special website for My Patriot Food Supply. Again, gang, they've been with us for months, and with all the quarantines that are being enforced already, with the possible quarantines yet to come, with all the pictures of those empty shelves, heck, you don't even need the pictures anymore, right? We've seen them for ourselves. It's such a relief to know that we have such wonderful friends over at My Patriot Food Supply. Gang, they're simply the best, and there's frankly never been a better time to stock up on an emergency food supply. No one makes that more ridiculously easy and more affordable than My Patriot Supply. Their food kits last up to 25 years in storage. They include breakfast, lunches, and dinners. And if you act now, you save 40% on a 2-week emergency food kit when you go to my special website just by clicking on the link below. If you're still looking to stock up on food and supplies, right, then make sure you take action today by clicking on that link, and you're going to save 40% off with your 2-week emergency food kit today. I've got mine. Make sure to get yours. Let's take care of each other throughout this coronavirus crisis, shall we? It's going to be nothing quite like it, and Patriot Food Supplies has been wonderful throughout the entire process. All right, so let's dive in here. You may have heard that the ultra-left MSNBC host Rachel Maddow wants the media to stop showing President Trump's daily news conferences on the coronavirus because his poll numbers have been going up. I'm sorry, because he's spreading misinformation, right? I want that to hit you. This is the same Rachel Maddow who peddled the Russian collusion conspiracy for 3 years straight on her channel, night after night, 5 nights a week for 3 years, and who is now, as it turns out, being featured on state-controlled Chinese television for the purposes of pushing pro-China and anti-American propaganda. Yeah, that Rachel Maddow. She's upset that President Trump is supposedly peddling in misinformation during his daily press conferences over the whole coronavirus epidemic. Now, again, I really want that to hit you. This is Rachel, Russian conspiracy theorist Maddow, lecturing President Trump on honesty. And one of the things that I think is so fascinating in all this is how the left-wing media's incessant rage against President Trump. And remember, okay, do not forget this. The only thing that President Trump really did do that was worthy of being impeached was he got elected. Okay, as far as these people are concerned, these far-left activists disguised as journalists are concerned, the only actual thing that President Trump ever actually did to fully justify impeachment was that he got elected. So the mainstream media at this point seems to exist for no other reason than to bring this legitimately elected president down. However, what all that is doing, all that rage, is actually helping the Chinese government. It's actively the Chinese government is trying to cover up their own ineptitude in handling the virus. So this rage-oriented reporting is actually fueling anti-American propaganda to Chinese audiences. And the irony here is that these liberal types like Rachel Maddow, the Marxist propaganda machine in Beijing, doesn't have to actually employ anyone to push anti-American propaganda. All they have to do is show completely unfiltered these American left-wing activists disguised as journalists do what they do best, and that's hate Trump. And what this means is that the anti-Trump media sounds virtually identical to pro-Marxist, pro-communist, pro-Beijing state-sponsored media. As we speak, there is virtually no difference between the two. And you know, in its more honest moments, even members within the mainstream media are noting that, okay? I was blown away. It was a couple of months back, but I have to say I was blown away by a piece in the Washington Post. That's right. The ultra-liberal Washington Post. Democracy dies in darkness, right? But it was a piece that they published that completely eviscerated Rachel Maddow over her coverage of the fake Steele dossier that provided those salacious details of a trip that Trump supposedly took to Russia and that Putin was supposedly using to blackmail Trump. It turned out, of course, to be absolutely and totally fabricated. It was a fraud. It was a complete and total lie concocted by the British agent Christopher Steele. But as the Washington Post Eric Wemple details, you would not have known that from just watching 3 years of Rachel Maddow. What Wemple does is he lays out in exhaustive detail a review of Maddow's reporting and discussion of the Steele dossier. And his assessment of Maddow could not possibly be more scathing. Here's just a tidbit of what he wrote. When small bits of news arose in favor of the dossier, the franchise MSNBC host pumped air into them. At least some of her many fans surely came away from her broadcast thinking the dossier was a serious piece of investigative research, not the flim-flam, quick-twitch game of telephone outlined in the Horowitz report. She seemed to be rooting for the document, and when large bits of news arose against the dossier, Maddow found other topics more compelling. She was there for the bunkings, but absent for the debunkings, a pattern of misleading and dishonest asymmetry. Close quote. Now, this assessment is dead on. Rachel Maddow represents the kind of utter and complete nonsense that you get when you disguise left-wing activists as journalists and reporters. You get an unmistakable pattern of what he calls here misleading and dishonest asymmetry. Now, again, note that this fellow from the Washington Post, note what he said here. It's not simply asymmetry. It's not simply a matter of consistently reporting one political side, the left-wing side, as wholly good and righteous and pure, while presenting the other political side, the political right, as incurably evil and wicked and bad, right? That would certainly be bad enough. And of course, we see that asymmetry all the time presented as news by the corporatist globalist media. No, it's not just that kind of asymmetry. The Washington Post, of all places, accuses Maddow of a pattern of deceitful asymmetry, what they call here misleading and dishonest asymmetry. Now, Jim Garrity over at National Review, He noted that when the Horowitz report came out a few months back confirming that the dossier was a bunch of utter and complete fabricated nonsense, bought and paid for by the Clinton campaign, by the way, if you remember that, right? Garrity notes that the day that report was released, detailing how the FBI used what they knew to be a fraud to get FISA warrants to spy on the Trump campaign, Maddow completely ignored the report's findings and focused solely on, really, frankly, the more idiotic element of the report, which denied any anti-Trump political bias motivating the decisions made by the FBI to spy on the Trump campaign. So listening to Maddow, you would have walked away with the notion that the Horowitz report ended up debunking the idea that the Steele dossier was the sole basis for the FBI's Russia investigation. That was it. That's what you would have got. Horowitz concluded that Trump was wrong, and that's all you guys really need to know. So what this means, and for me, is that Maddow shows up each and every night to tell what's remaining of her audience that Trump is Hitler, he's evil, he's the most horrific person on the planet. And so, it's only a matter of time before a day of reckoning comes to take him away. That's been her message for the last 3 years, and this latest coronavirus epidemic is no different. And such a message is resonating right now with the Chinese Communist Party and its state-run television. It's Maddow's incessant bashing of the president and his administration, including her show's praising of the Chinese leadership in all of this, that's actually been shown on Chinese state-controlled television as examples of pro-communist, anti-American propaganda. The important point I'm making here, when all said and done, there is very little difference between what Rachel Maddow has to say about the Trump administration's handling of the coronavirus outbreak and what the Chinese government would want a propagandist media to say. And I think you need to let that hit you. And maybe that's one of the contributing reasons for the latest poll on the media's trustworthiness, or the lack thereof, during this whole coronavirus outbreak. According to Statista.com, 47% of Americans said that they did not trust the mainstream media in particular, their coronavirus information. Again, what's so critical here to recognize is that the mainstream media, frankly, cannot exist without evoking a high degree of trustworthiness. That's the whole point of the media. It's built into their business model by definition. The media is in business only to the extent that it's able to convey the notion that they're trustworthy mediators of information about reality. And of course, in these increasingly partisan times, Democrats were overwhelmingly positive in terms of their assessment of the media's trustworthiness during this whole crisis period, while well over 60% of Republicans were highly skeptical of the media. And if you wanted to know why, we need look no further than the new hero of Marxist left-wing propagandists throughout the world, one Rachel Maddow. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video on Trump's approval ratings soaring during the coronavirus. We have 3 separate polls that are showing that his poll numbers are going through the roof. I think it's going to absolutely make your day. So make sure to click on the link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.